Hi everyone, I'm Vivek and welcome to yet another episode of our podcast channel, Our Journey to Net Zero. Are you amongst those who think our megacities have enough buildings today? Well then guess what? A study says that close to 70% of the buildings that will exist in 2030 in India are yet to be built. And that's why on this channel, we will talk to stalwarts who are going to be instrumental in defining the buildings of tomorrow. On that note, please welcome our guest for the day, Mr. Sushil Choudhury. Mr. Choudhury is the Managing Director of Blowtech Air, a leading manufacturer and exporter of ventilation fans and equipment in the country. In addition to being a presidential member of ACREX, he has been chairing the ACREX Hall of Fame for the last 5 editions. A very good morning, Mr. Choudhury. What a pleasure to have you with us. To start with, a study says close to 70% of the buildings that will exist in 2030 in India are yet to be built. What impact do you foresee should this materialize?
I think we are going to see growth, no doubt about it. And it may not be 14 to 15% year on year as predicted in the earlier studies, but nonetheless, we are going to see more and more buildings when you're talking about new buildings. Of course, it will have impact on energy, on water, on modern urban infrastructure, roads, transit systems. So, I mean, it's going to be a big challenge, but I do feel that we will be able to handle this challenge.
Now, looking at a further growth by 2030, do you believe that the times to come will be able to offer a good quality of life for the urban residents?
I'm quite hopeful that we will be able to do it. In terms of going forward, honestly speaking, I don't see energy as really a challenge. We have been talking about energy efficiency for the last, I think, 25 years. And I think we are moving comfortably on that road, I think, of energy efficiency. The biggest challenge I see is water. We're already seeing the water crisis in the country. Energy we can manage. The sun is going to be there. The wind is going to be there, I think, for the future generations. But water, I'm not too sure about.
According to you, is India capable of meeting its diverse objectives? One, that of development. Second, that of sustainability. And third, that of climate change.
Yes, no doubt our country needs development. Along with development, we have the challenges of sustainability and climate change. Again, come to that my point about the conservation and preservation of the precious water resource. We need strict compliance and enforcement of rules and regulations. We are good at making laws, but when it comes to enforcement, I think we lack there. A cornerstone of green future to generations to come is a highly reliable electric supply system. I think even I would say almost 75 years after our independence, we have not been able to do this. One thing that bothers me is water being such a scarce commodity. In many cities in the country, water supply is still not metered, must be made mandatory, I think. Talking about how a highly reliable electric supply system can help us in achieving a sustainable future. When we talk about rooftop solar generation, I think, today, I think rooftop solar generation is not so economically viable. And one important cause of that is the backup required in terms of battery. I think I'm told that the cost of batteries could be even more than 50% of the total cost of the setup. So if you combine a reliable grid along with two-way metering, you do away with batteries. Another benefit of having a reliable grid supply will be the backup DG set. To me, these backup generators are a waste of national resource. They create a noise pollution, they create environmental pollution. Basically, they are a nuisance. And so if you have a reliable grid, I think we can do away with this nuisance. So that's why I say that, yes, I'm optimistic that the triple goals of development, sustainability, and climate change, I think, is achievable in our country.
You spoke about laws, rules, regulations while being designed but not yet completely implemented. My question to you, Mr. Chaudhary, is have the star ratings and certifications made an impact on buildings taking that extra step towards reducing energy demand?
Yes, I believe so. The Bureau of Energy Efficiency's star labeling program, I would say, has been one of the most successful programs in the country. Awareness is growing. Investors and the building community, I think, they are focused on energy efficiency, I think.
My next question is, how have you seen technology and building design evolve over the past decades and foresee the same in the times to come?
Technology has and will remain the centerpiece of building design architecture evolution, I think. Technology is going to play a very important role. I would list the following technology going into the future at soft technologies: artificial intelligence, IoT, Internet of Things, 5G. These are the soft technologies. If we talk about hard technologies and their adoption for the building industry, I would talk about solar, wind, water conservation, filtration, net metering, 3D printing. And I would say that technology is going to be a savior also, I think. Without technology, there is no way we can achieve our triple goals of development, sustainability, and climate change.
What would be the major difference in terms of the technology that would have been there in the building 20 years from now to the technology which is there in the building today?
I think going forward 20 years, the buildings will be much more efficient, no doubt about it. In the building of a future, we will see a lot of reliance on renewables in terms of on site generation. We will see recycling of all the resources, including water and the other resources. We would see a proliferation of what I call net zero buildings, not only net zero in terms of energy, but net zero in terms of water, net zero in terms of carbon footprint.
Thank you for letting me pick your thoughts on what the buildings 20 years from now are going to be like. And how do you think the manufacturing sector has kept pace with the overarching progress towards climate change and sustainability?
When we talk about buildings, when we talk about sustainability, I think, most of the time we are talking about commercial buildings. I think the focus is really on the process load, not on the building load, because the building power requirements are a much smaller component within the overall power requirement of the manufacturing facility. But in terms of sustainability, in terms of climate change, I think we have to look at the total power consumption by the factory. We have many buildings which are gold rated, platinum rated, I think, in terms of these IGBC and USGBC ratings. Your own building, I think, Danfoss building, I think I'm told is a IGBC platinum rated building. I think, it's a green building. But I think we need to educate more the manufacturers. If we look at the process side, I think we do know that the processes are becoming more and more energy efficient. One of the largest component of the process load are electrical motors. Today, there is a big focus on energy efficient motors.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chaudhary. India is also expected to witness a massive surge in its energy demand in the times to come. How, according to you, can India achieve its goals against these challenges? And beyond sustainable buildings, what other elements would be critical towards helping India meet its net zero goals?
Net zero 2050 is certainly not an easy goal to achieve, but I believe it's achievable. In the last 10 years, target was to reduce the carbon intensity of our GDP by 25% by 2020, and we achieved it almost in 2016. So we achieved it 4 years ahead of our target. In terms of new generating capacity that we are adding, I think the share of fossil generation has dropped to 38%, and our target was 40%. So we have almost achieved the target. Pleasantly surprising to believe, out of a total generating capacity of about 390 gigawatts, today We crossed the figure of 100 gigawatts of renewable energy just this month in August. And we have a target to achieve 450 gigawatts of renewable generation by the year 2030. If electricity demand grows at that rate, by 2030, our total generating capacity will move from about 390 gigawatts today to 750 gigawatts. Out of 750 gigawatts, if the renewable share is 450 gigawatts, that represents 60% of electrical generation coming from renewables. By the way, today, that 60% share comes from fossil, coal, oil, etc. So these are the reasons, why I believe that we will be able to achieve this net zero 2050 target.
Mr. Chaudhary, you have been one of the most prominent torchbearers of the ACREX Hall of Fame, and you have seen it evolve over the past 5 editions. What change, according to you, has the ACREX Hall of Fame been able to bring about in the building fraternity?
We had the first episode of Hall of Fame in 2016. The last episode was last year in ACREX 2020. So we have had a total of 5 episodes. I believe almost became a movement, in 5 years, And we have been very happy with the kind of nominations we received in the last, say, 2, 3 years. So, no doubt, Hall of Fame has been a very successful benchmark. I've been associated with many other awards also. But when I compare Hall of Fame with other awards, I believe that the kind of evaluation that we did in Hall of Fame, there's no match for it. So I believe that Hall of Fame really created a benchmark for energy efficient HVAC systems in the buildings, I think. I do hope that we can continue that trend and make Hall of Fame a leading benchmark in the country of energy efficient buildings, I think.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Chaudhary. Before we close, what would be your suggestions to the larger building fraternity to help them achieve their sustainability goals?
My first request to the building fraternity at large will be that when you plan a project, don't look at the first cost only. If you look at sustainability as a goal, if you look at climate change, only way forward in the long term is focus on life cycle costs. Incorporate green building concepts, I think. Pay attention to water conservation, water preservation, water recycling, and maximize reliance on rainwater. We need to learn to recycle waste. I think we don't recycle waste and we throw the waste in open drains, and that pollutes our water systems, our rivers, I think. But more than strong laws, we need strict enforcement and compliance. I would say to a builder, even if the municipal supply of water to you is not metered, please provide internal metering of water to ensure judicious water use, I think. I believe that we also need a new national building code. Right now, the building code is not so much of a code as it is a guide. So, not only do we need a new building code, but we also need to make the provisions of the building code as mandatory, as happens in a code, I think. So I think these are some of my thoughts in what I think the building community at large can do to help the nation achieve its green goals and sustainability goals.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chaudhary. It was a pleasure speaking with you and to have you with us.
Thank you.
With this, we come to the end of yet another episode. And here's a small reminder to my commercial building fraternity that we are hosting our next edition of the ACREX Hall of Fame on the 18th Feb 2022. We look forward to receiving your nominations and we hope you do make it to our Hall of Fame. On this note, signing off for now. Until next time.